Thank you for tuning in to Emerge's weekly interview series with women elected officials. We are excited to be joined today by Richland City Councilwoman Allison Terracio, who is also an Emerge South Carolina alum. Allison represents Richland County Richland County Council District 5, which includes much of downtown Columbia, South Carolina. She's a mom to Van, wife to Nate, and an organizing program coordinator with Planned Parenthood South Atlantic, focusing on patient greeting. I bet you've got a lot of stories about that. She was inspired to run for county council after seeing local governments step up to protect our environment, create policies to ensure our law enforcement officials are acting in the interest of public safety, and create opportunities for students to learn and communities to thrive. Thank you so much for joining us today. And Allison, thank you for being here. Really appreciate it.
I'm glad to be here with you.
Great. So the world is just now really starting to open up, but we know that COVID-19 has and will continue to have a devastating impact on every community, and elected officials like yourself have been on the front lines of helping families through this time. What does recovery look like in Richland County, and what are you doing to support your community?
Yeah. Well, sometime early during the pandemic, I kept thinking about how there's all this talk about coming to normalcy and that kind of thing. And I thought, what a great time to reinvent ourselves, reimagine ourselves, and be thoughtful about the ways that we want to come back. What kinds of businesses? How do we want to do business? How do we want to serve our community? Even just in terms of our council meetings, we are, online on Zoom. And we had already been live streaming all of our council meetings anyway. But I want to take some of the opportunity for people to submit comments virtually more. They don't have to come to council chambers because our county is not physically huge, but it can be a barrier, to come to a 6 p.m. council meeting on a Tuesday night with people who have families and that sort of thing. So I hope we continue to do things a little bit differently, and that we also just reimagine how we want to look as a county, and we hold the capital city. So how do we want to envision that being that here in South Carolina? We started things just on the ground, kind of checking on people, bringing people's masks. I know there were a lot of council members who were very involved in, food delivery, right? People come driving through and getting boxes of food and that sort of thing. So a lot of constituent service like that, which really helped us to see everybody, because we stopped seeing people and people had stopped being seen. So there were a lot of opportunities created to see each other safely and provide services to each other. And then thinking bigger, we have this influx of American Recovery Act dollars. And so we want to be super smart about how we use those to create, I'll use that word, infrastructure, meaning lots of different things, to ensure that people can continue to live here and thrive.
That's fantastic. And I really appreciate what you said about taking some of this with you to make sure that your council is accessible to constituents. That's definitely something we're learning here at Emerge, with our training programs being all virtual and our events being virtual. It does create more accessibility for folks to participate. So I really appreciate that and all of the work that you're doing. I know you're also a mom, and so I'm sure that this last year or so has taught you a lot there and impacted your family in many ways. So your priorities have always really been centered on women and children. So can you tell us a little bit more about what you're hoping to accomplish in County Council this year?
Yeah, well, one of the big initiatives that we're really, the motion has been with us for a minute, and we have partnered with the City of Columbia on an affordable housing task force. So our council has kind of been following along with the City of Columbia, and we are about to take some of the lessons learned from the task force to start to put those into what that may look like in terms of an ordinance that we would do. How do we figure out how to fund some of these initiatives? So I'm really excited about creating, we use the term affordable housing. A lot of times that has some stigma associated with it. Sometimes we use the word attainable housing, which means like, okay, can you afford this housing? And then there's also like the term accessible housing. So we're kind of in a place where we're figuring out the right language to use around this, because I think one of the biggest roadblocks toward making sure that everyone has a home that they can afford to live in a dignified way, meaning like it's hot. Can you, does your apartment have air conditioning? Can you afford to turn it on? All of those kinds of things are super important. So, being able to ensure that families and children have stable housing really helps with all of the just health, learning, growth of children, right? When you're moving around a lot and every year or every 6 months you have a different bedroom, that's a stressor on kids. In fact, I used to have this accountant who would tell me, it's one of the three most stressful things in life are moving, a death in the family, and I think she said divorce or something like that. But she always, because we were moving a lot then, and every time we would have a different address, she would say, no, it's one of the top three most stressful things is moving. So the more that we can keep people in a stable home, I think the better off we will all be, including right down to how our children grow up.
Right. Yeah. And I truly appreciate the difference and the attainable housing phrase. I haven't heard that one before. So that's a really good one to use, because, having housing and having a full lived experience of being able to afford and support that home is different. So that's a really important distinction. I'm glad you're thinking about it holistically. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and you might be able to like write that rent check at the beginning of each month, but you might not be able to, but what if your shower doesn't work? What if you don't have, all of those kinds of things. So we have to think about this in terms of protecting people in their homes, especially if they're renters.
Yes, I could not agree more, especially right now.
Mm-hmm.
So you sort of alluded to this, that you had an accountant you worked with who taught you some things, but before you came to run for office, you were working in banking and finance. So how has that been an asset for you on the council? I bet they want you on the budget committee.
We're all on the budget committee. Right now we are in the midst of budget. And so we do that every 2 years. And sometimes it's just a matter of like being in the middle of a council meeting, someone kind of quibbling about an amount or something, and just being able to like do math really quick on a piece of paper, or pull out your phone and start to do some figures and come up with like, okay, well here's where we are, here's where we want to be, here's a midpoint. This is actually the percentage that we're looking at. It's not a huge percentage. So just being able to be real with numbers. It's not so much about like, being the slickest with the numbers. I think it's just about being able to be real and realistic. Because at the end of the day, I think that's, it's money in, money out, right? That's when I first started working with the bank. They were like, okay, here, this is a debit and this is a credit. And if you can figure out debits and credits, you can go pretty far. So, that's it. It's just, can your money in match your money out? And, how much do you need to have in reserve? Like we need to have a reserve fund for rainy days. And we need to be smart about how we use that rainy day fund, and how we imagine using services. And, one of the things that people often say is that, a budget is a reflection of your values. So what do you care about the most? You can say, I care about this or care about that. But if you're not putting your money behind it, then it's really meaningless.
That could not be more true. Yes. So finally, I can't let you go without asking about running for office. So what's your advice to women who are thinking about running for office, and how has Emerge helped you on this journey?
Well, Emerge helped me get really brave. Emerge helped me to realize that I was not the only person. And I've said this a lot before, but when I first was showing up as an activist in a certain way, people were asking me what I was going to run for. And I was like, listen, I'm not an attorney. I was not a political science major. I don't live in this world. So, yeah, it's not me. And gradually over time, what I heard and saw were just more and more examples of people like me, people who had, you know, uh, whatever, a variety of majors in college or no major in college, people who had various work experiences, and people who, might have been afraid about, like, ooh, what's that ex-boyfriend going to say about me on
Mm.
Facebook? And is that going to keep people from voting for me? And I think that, like, it just helped me to get over myself and over the fear. So I guess what I would say to people who are thinking about running for office is just, um, you know, you can do it. Anybody can do it. And that also, my life right now, 3 years after 2018, looks really different than it did in 2018. My child, I see it. My child is bigger. Um, I'm in a different career trajectory right now, and after being in office for a few years, you I mean, it's just sort of like, it, anything that you would have done for the first time, like going to school, being a parent. Life looks very different with a 3-year-old than it did with an infant, and so you will grow with it. So if you put yourself on this path, you will grow along with it.
Well, that is fantastic advice. Thank you so much for stepping up. I mean, if you can't see it, you can't be it. So it's really important that women like you run for office. So thank you so much for sharing all of your experiences with us today and for being here, Councilwoman. We truly appreciate you.
Thank you so much for having me. This was really fun.
Well, anytime.
All
And
right.
thank you all for joining us for this episode of Emerge at Work. Subscribe to our channel for updates and more great conversations with Emerge leaders from coast to coast. Thank you.